Welcome. So happy to have you here with me on this beautiful Easter Sunday. And I want to talk today about forgiving the unforgivable. Heartbreak, it comes in many forms. We've all experienced it, and it can come from different people too. It's not just about your romantic relationships, things ending in that way, but there's the heartbreak of being betrayed, of being disappointed, having your trust abused, being neglected, and even various other damaging acts that can be carried out by our significant others, and frankly, by people we barely even know. So some acts are more heinous than others. And I've given a lot of thought to this because I've had to do this myself. The more awful the act is that's been perpetrated against you, the more difficult it is to even contemplate forgiving that person. So let's start with, is it really necessary to forgive when someone does something heinous to you? Sometimes what happened is unforgivable. And I'm talking about extremes, like someone murders your child or steals your life savings. They burn your house down. They cheat on you and give you AIDS. I'm just, there's so many things. They could serially abuse innocence in their care. Those kind of things are considered unforgivable. And that's just a short list. You can freely choose to forgive the perpetrator, but it's not to be expected or fostered. I mean, I don't think anybody can say to a person, you need to forgive them, or you must forgive them, or shame you because you're not forgiving them. If you're not ready to do that, if you don't feel like that's something you need to do, then don't do it. It won't work anyway. So, you're not there yet. That's okay. Maybe you will never be. I know some people who never forgive for certain things and it hurts them, but it's their choice. We all have free will and we get to make these decisions for ourselves. So you're under no obligation to forgive a perpetrator for one of these heinous type of acts. It's entirely up to you if you ever do. But if you come to a place where the pain and bitterness that you carry within you related to that incident becomes too much to bear, where it's eating you up alive, where it's destroying relationships, where it's holding you back, keeping you from becoming the person you're meant to be, consider freeing yourself through forgiveness. And I speak from experience here, and I'll talk to you about that later in the show. I don't want to put that on your brain yet, but I will. So I want to talk a little bit about why forgiveness is important for us, the person who's had something heinous done to them. You forgive not because that person deserves it or because you say, oh, I'm okay with what you did, I condone it. It's because you deserve to be free. When you don't forgive, you are carrying around these negative emotions, and it eventually will affect you physically. It starts emotionally, then it's physically. So it's more beneficial to you to forgive than it is to the other person. They'll probably never know you did it. I mean, they might feel some shift energetically, but they probably won't. But it's not for them, it's for you. So do it for you. Forgive those who are not even sorry, who may even be repeat and unremorseful offenders. Forgiving someone doesn't mean that you allow them to remain in your life. In fact, it can often mean the exact opposite. Forgive, and it helps you let go of those people that you've determined are not good for your well-being. It really detaches it from you completely. You'll feel so much lighter after having cleared out this negative space that these individuals were occupying within your heart and mind. And it's happening whether you're aware of it or not. And the more pain you're in, the less likely you are to realize how much it's affecting you. It's when you get out of it that you kind of look back and go, phew, oh my goodness, how did I deal with that? As long as I did, it felt so heavy, so awful. So here's another thing to think about: being alone. In moderation, spending time alone is essential to healing and moving forward. When you've been hurt deeply, your cup is empty. You have nothing to give. Your energy is depleted. You can't help others. You can't give. You don't have much to pour into others. And take the necessary time to come to terms with what's happened to you. Recharge yourself, refill your energy, find some joy again, have a more positive outlook on your life and life in general. Please allow others to support you and never hesitate to reach out for help when you need it, or encouragement when you just feel tired and hopeless. Just make sure you're getting enough time alone to focus all of your energy on you. And I want to go back a little bit on this, allow people to help you. I'm one of those that tends to be overly independent, and I am loath to ask people for help, but I'm really working on that because I feel like that is a character defect I have, that I am denying people to show a very real way that they care about me and they love me. And I give that to them. I need to allow people to give that to me. So think about it that way. Like, it's not just about you. You're not just taking something from someone, their time, their energy, but you are allowing them to love you, to care about you, to show you some devotion and compassion. Another thing is to stay objective. I'm a big one for that. I think that when I can step back out of emotions and detach from the emotions, I have a much clearer view of what happened, what I did in the wrong, what I didn't like about what happened to me, how I might have avoided that, how I can avoid it in the future. There are some things for which there truly is no excuse. And I gave some examples of that a little earlier. But sometimes it helps to understand the situation if you can see it from the other person's point of view. Did they have malicious intent? Could this have been a misunderstanding? And so often it is. A big one like that, just in case it's a misunderstanding, is I've started doing something. I learned about it a long time ago. I did it and then got away from it. But that is when someone says something that hurts me, or it feels like they're judging me, insulting me, I step out of emotions and I'll say, could you tell me what your intention was with that statement? And they'll usually say, with what? And I'll repeat what they said. Oh, no, I didn't mean anything, but what did you mean? Calmly and objectively, what did you mean? So that before you react to what is said and assume they meant what you think they said, that you get a better understanding of the motivation and intention behind their words. There's usually a big disconnect because we are operating from every experience we've ever had, and we can be triggered. I have been, haven't we all? What could they have been thinking? Maybe that their line of thinking is so different than what you think it was. So that's why I like the clarification. Then if it turns out, oh, I meant that I think you are spending your money unwisely, then I would say, I just want to let you know that that's a judgment. And I've had people say things when I say that, they'll be like, everybody does that. I'm like, the people who are trying to be better and to improve themselves and humanity are learning to recognize that in themselves and try to cut it back and eliminate it. And I just leave it at that. Let them think about that. I'm not here, you're not here to change another person or to have them go, oh, you're so right, I didn't see it that way. It's not going to work that way. Once in a while, but usually they're going to think about that. They might be upset at first, they might need to mull it over, and I like to give people time to mull it over because I want time to mull things over. I like to think about things and not obsess about them, but just think about all these things I'm mentioning to you now, what might have really happened, what could have been their intention. And if you can't talk about it right then, maybe you're too upset or you're both in a hurry, make time to talk about it with them as soon as possible. Don't let these things fester. Is this person repeating a cycle of learned behavior, things that they saw in their family growing up, things that they've always done, even though it's toxic or it's not working, it puts people off? Are they just repeating a pattern? I'm going to repeat a pattern. The pattern is telling you there's a wonderful book out there that I highly recommend, and it's called The 4 Agreements. And one of the agreements is don't take it personally. And I remind myself of this all the time. It's not just for everybody else, but things I talk to you about are things I've gone through and continuously finding, oh gosh, I need to work on that some more. Rarely in these situations is it about you. And even with the heinous things, they rarely do it because they want to hurt you. They're doing it because they got something going on, mental illness, or, maybe they're sociopathic, psychopathic, who knows? But it's rarely like somebody does something awful because their intention is to hurt you. Their intention may be more to satisfy their needs, their wants in that moment any way they can, and not thinking of you. But there's a difference there. These are questions that are good to ask yourself when these things happen, even with heinous things, and not to shift blame, but to just acquire a different perception that offers that opportunity for conscious forgiveness. Because remember when I said earlier that if you're not even in a place where you can even imagine forgiving someone for something, then you're not ready. That's all it means, is you're not ready. That's okay. That's no judgment about that. We all get where we need to be when we get there, and allow yourself time. Maybe you need to be angry for a while. Maybe you just are so still in a reactive mode where you're so walled off, you can't even imagine opening up enough to allow forgiveness, and it's okay. So this is going to be a funny story given what's happened recently, but this next little section is about being accountable. And I found this story online, and it's about Will Smith, and it's not about him smacking the guy at the ceremony recently. So Will Smith had taken Instagram, the whole world of Instagram, by storm. He had a combination of funny and inspirational videos. And one that really stood out is a video he did on fault versus responsibility. The situation in which you find yourself, or the pain that's been inflicted upon you, may absolutely be somebody else's fault. But it's always your responsibility to fix it internally within yourself and find a way to heal. The first step is always forgiveness. And this comes back something that I work with my clients a lot when I have a lot of people come to me who are in a toxic relationship or just got out of one with someone who's, a severe narcissist, sociopath. And it's very traumatic, and they've been left they're carrying a lot of that trauma within them. But I always tell them, like, they're trying to get closure from this narcissist or closure from this sociopath. I'm like, you're not going to get it. There's certain people who, and even other than those 2 personality disorders, who will never give you the closure you need. And so I've come up with some ways to help clients and myself. Give yourself the closure that you need. Give yourself the healing. It cannot be dependent upon what somebody else is willing to give you. So I didn't want to hurt for the rest of my life because of this last thing, the heinous thing that happened to me. I wanted to be free of it. I wanted to step fully into my mission, my new mission that my angels were guiding me into. And I felt in my heart like, oh, I'm so wanting to do that. I really want that. But I couldn't do it and drag all of that with me. So I do understand how hard it is. But realize that it is your responsibility to heal yourself. So just something to think about again. Another thing is to be forgiving of yourself. Perhaps you were wrong in the situation, or you contributed it to in some way. Usually that is the case. And sometimes that contribution is seeing red flags in a person's behavior, actions, and not cutting them out of your life. If you know what the signs are of certain behaviors that are absolutely firm boundaries for you, and you allow that to stay around you, then that's something that you contributed to. If they cross your boundaries and you don't reinforce them and say, just remind them, this is my boundary. Now realize the boundary isn't the rules that you set. It's how you respond to someone crossing your rules. So you may have contributed to the negative outcome in some way. And it's not about, oh gosh, you need to take some of the blame for this. It's about making yourself wiser. It's about educating yourself. Everything that happens to us is a lesson, and some of them are horrible lessons, but there are lessons involved in it. The most important person to forgive is you, so that you don't beat yourself up and punish yourself. And so when I say this forgiveness, like, to me, forgiving yourself is huge. And sometimes when I talk to people about it and I'm like, don't forget to forgive yourself. And they're like, what? Why? I'm like, because remember, you're going to be giving some thought to how you contributed to this or allowed it to continue or whatever it is. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for picking the wrong friend or the wrong partner. Whatever it is, making a decision that you can clearly see in hindsight wasn't good, but you weren't in hindsight then. So forgive yourself. If you don't forgive yourself, it makes it impossible to move on, to move past what's happened, get on with your life. You need to acknowledge and accept where you may have been wrong, apologize if necessary, or at least own it. If the person did something truly heinous, I'm unlikely to go to them and say, oh, by the way, I see that you exhibited narcissistic behaviors early on, and I'm sorry that I stayed with you. No, I'm not going to do that. But if it's something more mild, I would. I would admit, I'm going to look and see like what my part of it is and apologize for that, whether they apologize to me for theirs or not. Make amends whenever it's possible. It's not always possible. And then forgive yourself. And at the end of the show, I'm going to be giving you 2 concrete ways to go about that you can take with you. You can listen to it again on the show, write it down, and they're actually on my website too, so you'll be able to see them there. Often when you explore forgiveness, it sounds good, like, oh yeah, I want to forgive, that I really want to get that done. But what do you do with the pain you've been carrying around? Where does that go? So know that forgiving someone doesn't erase your memories, and it doesn't completely remove the pain. But what it does is begin your healing process. It sets you on a path where one day those memories won't be as crippling and the pain won't hurt you as much. And it gives you back power. Forgiveness doesn't say it's okay what you did. It says, I'm okay, or at least you will be. So I want to talk to you about my story. This is just one of my stories of forgiveness. And it's hard for me to talk about this, but I need to. So my last relationship, which was some time ago because I was so damaged by it that I needed a long time to heal. I was in a relationship with a person who was a narcissist and a very dark person involved in like black magic, but I had no idea. And I was trying to help him. I saw some good in him. I wanted to help him leave some kind of negative aspects of himself behind that he said he wanted to. So what happened was I found out that he had been cheating on me with a lot of men. And that was really upsetting. And he gave me an STD from it that luckily was something mild. Then he swore that everything, he's, changing his way. He said it was because he hated himself. I got him a spiritual counselor. And then that seemed to go really strange early on. And the upshot is that 9 months later, I found those two in our guest room bed together. Yeah, it was like a Lifetime movie. And then I realized that was at the same time that I had been experiencing some really severe physical symptoms. And he was, I really believe that he was trying to poison me because he started bringing me these drinks that's not like him to do, like little smoothie drinks. And I'd drink one and then I would start having symptoms. And I eventually had exploratory surgery because they couldn't figure out why I was getting sicker. having so many problems. And as soon as I said, the day I found them, and I said to her, I hope you understand that I'm pretty sure he's been poisoning me. And never again, like we still lived in that house for a few more months, but never again did I have another symptom. Like the little smoothie trip stopped and I had no more symptoms. But my body, I was so stressed from all of this that all the organs in my body were starting to shut down. And I just really didn't want to go on anymore. I felt that emotional depletion, the spiritual depletion. It was just awful, just awful. And I decided I'm going to use my timeshare and go to Sedona. I wasn't living there yet. I was in Cave Creek, and I went to Sedona for a week, got a little condo there, isolated from everybody else because I knew it wasn't going to be pretty. And I made up my mind that I'm going to heal myself, get a really good jump on the healing while I'm up there. And I took the forgiveness prayer with me, and I did that. You'll hear about it a little later, but I did that prayer multiple times a day the whole time I was there. And the first few days, especially the first day, I sobbed when I was choking on the words and sobbing, and it hurt me in the heart. And because I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it, but I pushed myself through that. And you don't have to. This is just my story. It doesn't have to be your story. Everyone's different. But I pushed myself through because I wanted to get back to helping people, and I wanted to help them even more. I was in the midst of making the shift from my mental health career to doing my spiritual work full time and moving to Sedona. And I could not drag all of that pain and trauma with me. So I did this. And at the end, like I would say about the 6th day, I could say the words, I wouldn't cry, and I felt calm in that knot that I had in my heart, that heart chakra pain where we store all of our emotional trauma, that just started to unwind. It unwound, and I felt much more peace. And I felt so logical. Like I felt like my head cleared for the first time. I wasn't worried about what he was doing. I was totally focused on what I needed, which is a great place to be in a time like that, as you want to detach from worrying about the other person, no matter what they did to you. Think about what you need, because likely when you go into trauma like that, that trauma response, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you're not getting out in nature, you're not, maybe even not showering enough, all the things that are going to help you feel better. So I just want to say, like, it wasn't long after that, within 3 months, he was gone. I was moved to Sedona. I was working full time doing this business. And I don't think that that's the end of my healing journey, because it's not. Like I said, I took years. It's been 8 years, and I've dated casually, but I haven't had a relationship because I want to be completely healed. And so, in your heart when you're not, no matter what happened to you, no matter what the thing is you think about forgiving, when you're healed or not. So I'm really glad I did that. It was awful. It was awful to go through, and I knew what I was in for, but I'm so glad I did it, because it really helped me step out of that pain quickly, not totally, but the worst of it quickly. So what about if you did something unforgivable? None of us are innocent in this world. People, newborn babies, they're innocent, but the rest of us make mistakes, and sometimes we make big mistakes, and sometimes it's not on purpose, but we still did it. So here's some methods to forgive yourself if this happens. Just remember that it's okay for you to feel guilty, but understand the difference between guilty and shame. You don't want to go into a shame cycle where you're just obsessed with, well, I'm so bad, I'm an awful person. But you can embrace what you've done. You can own it and face up to it and have some guilt about that. But if it goes too far, it goes into shame. Admit that you messed up. There's no shame. There is no person, again, on the face of the planet who hasn't made a mistake, who hasn't made multiple mistakes, because we're here on this planet in human form to learn, to have experiences, to become better, to become wiser, and move forward with that. And it's going to mean that you're going to make some big mistakes. Apologize to anyone you've hurt in any way you can. And sometimes if they won't meet with you in person, then send them an email, send them a text. And if they never respond, that's okay. You can't control another person, but you can do what you know is right. And then hopefully they'll do what they think is right, but maybe they need to heal. So we have to just let it go sometimes. Write yourself an apology. I love it. Just there's other uses for this tool, but in this case, write yourself an apology. You know, Ivory, I forgive you for XYZ. And I know you're not perfect. I know you're a good person overall, and you didn't mean to be hurtful. And I forgive you for that. I think it's very healing. It can be very cathartic. Take care of yourself again, mentally and physically. It's really important to focus on your needs. Be patient. Nothing happens quickly, and healing, any kind of healing, it just takes time. Don't try to change other people. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but you're never going to convince another person to think the way you do or to be different than they are. Accept them as they are. Allow them to have their experience and their reaction. To if maybe just reading your apology in an email is the most that they can do, and that's okay. And so my personal thing is, when things like this happen, I send them blessings, whether they hurt me or I think I hurt them. Even if I hurt them and I don't know how I hurt them, I send them blessings and love, because there's nothing to be gained. And I learned this from my angels at a young age. There's nothing to be gained by responding to anger or any kind of negative behavior by the same kind of anger, emotions, or behavior. The only thing that truly battles any kind of negativity, darkness, is love and light. And so at least you clear the energy and you free yourself from it, and then you allow them to do their own healing. I promised you I was going to give you a couple of forgiveness prayers, and we're going to do that right now. This is my favorite one. And it's called the Forgiveness Prayer, and it was written by Roberta Herzog. She was a revered spiritual teacher. She's passed to the other side some years back, but this was brought to me by a person who had been a student of hers, and I just love it. So here's what you do. When you rise in the morning, and then before you go to bed at night, for at least 10 to 14 days, you sit quietly with your eyes closed, and you picture in your mind's eye the soul you wish to forgive. So let's say it is your brother. Then you're going to picture your brother's face in your mind with a happy, smiling expression on his face. Then you're going to say this prayer below out loud to that person, and you're speaking to their soul. So I don't need to forgive my brother, Alan. He's a wonderful person, but Alan, I'm going to use you as an example. Alan, I forgive you for everything you've ever said or done to me in thought, word, or deed that has caused me pain in this or any other lifetime, on all levels and in all dimensions. You are free and I am free. And Alan, I ask that you forgive me for anything I have ever said or done to you in thought, word, or deed in this or any other lifetime that has caused you pain. You are free and I am free. Thank you, God, for this opportunity to forgive Alan and to forgive myself. It seems so simple, but you notice that you're forgiving the other person and yourself in the same prayer. And sometimes, no matter, I send this document, or I'll refer people actually to my website and say, please visit, here's the link to the forgiveness prayer. And they'll say, I did it, but it didn't work. I'm like, how many times did you do it? Just once. Did you read the instructions? Because it's not a one-time deal. You need to do this for 10 to 14 days. And like I said, I did it 4 times a day in the beginning because I really wanted to forgive. I really wanted to leave all of that behind. You'll know when to cease saying this prayer when you experience a shift in your attitude towards that person. That sense of release might come in the form of crying, laughter, feeling really well, not having any anger, or another form of positive change. For most people, it does take 10 to 14 days. You might shift sooner or require more time, so don't stop at 14 days if you still haven't felt a shift. Another change you could experience is a shift in that person's attitude toward you. They might be more friendly, less angry, stop focusing on you, or indicate that they understand you better. Look for subtle signs first. I experienced this. There was a couple in a social group I was involved in who she just took a dislike to me instantly, and he liked me, but he was trying to stay on her good side. And they were actively like sabotaging me and keeping me from achieving what I hoped to achieve within that group. And they made they didn't try to hide it. Everybody knew it. And so they wouldn't really like she especially could not have a conversation because she just would not connect with anybody really, but she wouldn't connect with me like I tried to have a conversation with her. So I decided to try this. And this was actually early. Let me take a sip of water. Getting dry here. It was early in my time of using this. And I said this to them and kept working it. And then they showed up at my door. Like 2.5 weeks later, they showed up at my front door. So nice, so helpful. And from that point on, there was a positive shift. It never got wonderful. Don't take me wrong. I don't think it did. But it definitely had an improvement, which is what I was looking for. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. And I say, I have that on my website, ivoryangelic.medium.com under resource tab. It's free. Anybody can access that. I encourage you to share it with anybody who could use it. Roberta intended this prayer to be a gift to the world, and I'm helping her continue that. Also on that same page is something a lot of people know of, which is the Pono prayer for forgiveness, healing, and making things right. So this is a quote by a shaman, Timothy Frake, who's in Hawaii, who says, in common with other shamanic traditions, the Hawaiian tradition teaches that all life is connected. Ho'oponopono is therefore not only a way of healing ourselves, but others and the world as well. Wow, we could really use that right now. This prayer focuses on repentance, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. These are reflected in the 4 phrases that make up the prayer. This is a really simple one you could memorize and take around with you and just keep saying it as you like have a painful memory or you're feeling the effects of whatever happened. So you say these phrases out loud or silently to yourself. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I think it's helpful to repeat those until you start to feel a shift in your body. I always feel like that unwinding in the heart chakra and like this serenity wash over me. If you find yourself resisting the practice of forgiveness at first, it is natural. It's especially true if you've had a heinous experience and you've got a lot of healing to do. But after a few times, it gets easier. You might feel better right away or feel like your evolution is kind of like you're slowly melting into a state of love. But in closing today, as in all forms of healing, be gentle with yourself. Give yourself time to come to a place where you're ready to heal, ready to forgive, or see that you have a great need for it. When you begin forgiveness, let things unfold naturally. You will not be able to make yourself truly embrace the words and mean it until you're meant to. And remember to ask your angels to assist you in releasing your pain and traumatic memories through forgiveness. However you choose to get there, your angels want you to live in joy and will be there for you every step of the way. And I know this because once I got moved to Sedona, I still could feel I needed the healing, even though I'd done the forgiveness work. And I started doing the forgiveness work again because I wanted to release more. And I did ask my angels, let this forgiveness prayer be very powerful for me. Let it release all pain and trauma I'm capable of releasing at this time. And just saying that sometimes just kind of gives everything a boost. When we ask our angels for help, they're there for us. I want to say a little hello to my fans in Colombia. Thank you for listening. So happy to have you here with me. And tune in next Sunday. It'll be a live show again. And the topic is Archangel Chamuel. He is the angel of peaceful relationships. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life.